The Parable of the Heir, Part 1. The Advance on the Inheritance. The Dining Room of the Almeida Home, NPL. Meticulously designed house in Miami's South District was wrapped in a silence so dense it felt like humidity you could breathe in. It was the silence of a slow, unfolding betrayal. The soft clink of a fork against porcelain sliced through the tension like an alarm. Eduardo Almeida, 54, owner of a mid-sized construction firm called Almeida and Son Contractors, stared down at the homemade lasagna his wife Laura had prepared. But all he could see were numbers, contract figures, budget sheets, the number his youngest son had just tossed on the table like a grenade. "It's just an early inheritance, Dad. You always said my share was guaranteed." Thiago, 22, leaned back in his chair with the kind of confidence that came from never having heard the word no. His light hazel eyes, his mother's, shifted between Eduardo and the iPhone 14 Pro Max resting casually on the table. His designer t-shirt probably cost more than what Eduardo's senior foreman made in a week. His hair was styled in that effortless Miami influencer way, highlighted just enough to catch the chandelier's glow. Eduardo swallowed hard, a knot tightening in his throat. An advance? Thiago. An inheritance isn't an allowance. You receive it when. He couldn't bring himself to finish. When you die? Yeah, I know. Thiago shrugged like they were talking about sneaker drops. But I don't want to wait. I've got plans. The crypto market is blowing up, and I've got an opening in a private fund downtown. It's now or never. Across the table, Lucas, 26, lowered his gaze. His fingers still smudged with ink from ours, reviewing structural plans tightened around his fork. He remained silent. He was always the quiet one, the dependable one. The kid who spent spring breaks on job sites learning the business from the ground up. While Thiago spent summers in Ibiza on Dad's credit card, Lucas filed permits and learned payroll at the office. Plans? Laura's voice cracked. Baby, you already have such a good life here. Your room upstairs, your car, your family. Exactly, Mom. A great life here. Thiago stressed the last word with disdain. I want my life out there. I want to build something of my own. My rules. I don't want to inherit some old-school company filled with drama, debt, and employees twice my age. I want something modern, digital, global. Eduardo felt each word like a blow. Drama, debt. His voice came out rougher than he intended. This old-school company paid for your private school, your Disney trips, your semester in Toronto. It pays for this house. I'm the debt. Is that what you're saying? Dad, it's not personal. Thiago raised his hands in fake diplomacy. It's business. You always said business and emotions don't mix. I'm being professional. I just want my share of our family assets fairly calculated, of course, and I'll multiply it. In a few years, I'll come back and invest in the company, maybe even buy it from you. The silence that followed was suffocating. Lucas risked a glance at his father, Eduardo Almeida, man who had built his business from nothing, who had survived market crashes, hurricanes, corrupt city inspectors, and ruthless Miami competition. Suddenly seemed smaller. His shoulders sagged. Once sharp eyes were dull. How much? Eduardo asked finally, his voice sandpapered with exhaustion. Thiago smirked, sensing victory. He opened an app on his phone. I did a conservative estimate. The house value, your company, equity, and your investments. It comes to about $650,000, Laura gasped. Lucas felt his stomach twist. It was nearly 1/3 of everything their father had spent a lifetime building. 650, Eduardo repeated quietly as though testing the weight of it. And what do you leave for me? For your mother? For your brother? I leave the company, the properties, the clients, the legacy. Thiago said the word like it tasted bitter. Once I flip this money, I'll come back and help. You'll see. Eduardo turned toward Lucas, searching for something. Anger, agreement, anything. But Lucas kept his face still, though a cold fire burned inside him. While he drowned in overtime for scraps of acknowledgement, his brother was ready to pillage the family and vanish with the spoils. I need time to think, Eduardo murmured. We don't have much time, Dad. The investment window closes next week. Eduardo didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in his dim home office, staring at framed photos. One picture, black and white, showed him and a 10-year-old Thiago at the groundbreaking of his first big project. Thiago held a toy shovel, smiling with an innocence. Eduardo now realized he missed more than anything. He had given his sons everything: comfort, security, opportunity. But had he also created entitlement? Had he mistaken providing for parenting? Laura stepped into the office, wrapped in a robe, her eyes swollen from crying. "Eduardo, you're not actually considering this, are you? Thiago is just a boy. He doesn't understand what he's asking. He understands perfectly, Laura." Bitterness coated his words. He calculated every cent. He doesn't see a family, sees assets, liquidity, leverage. "And if you say no," she whispered. "He'll leave anyway," Eduardo said, "and he'll hate us. But if you say yes," gets exactly what he wants. The next day, after a tense meeting with his lawyer and accountant, Eduardo called Thiago into the office. "It's going to work out, Dad, you'll see," Thiago said, almost vibrating with excitement. Eduardo signed the papers, some cash transfers, some asset liquidations. His hand shook. Each signature felt like burying something sacred. It's not money, something deeper. Trust, unity, fatherhood. The moment the wire cleared, Thiago gave Eduardo a quick, mechanical hug. "I'll send updates, and don't worry, I'll call all the time." He left that same afternoon. His designer luggage was already packed. He sold the sports car Eduardo bought him for liquidity, ordered an Uber to Miami International Airport, and vanished. Laura cried softly. Lucas held her, though his expression was carved from stone. Eduardo shut himself in his office and finally let the tears fall. Hot, heavy, relentless. They cleansed his face, but not the wound. A son who preferred money to his father's presence, the world to his own home. The days that followed felt like walking underwater. Eduardo visited work sites, but his heart wasn't there. He watched his workers' men hustling to support their families and felt a sting of envy. Their kids respected them. He saw him as an ATM. Lucas buried himself in work. He took on responsibilities that weren't his. Stayed late into the night, filling the void Thiago left. Meanwhile, Thiago's Instagram exploded with photos. First-class flights, yacht parties in Mykonos. Champagne bottles worth thousands. Hashtags like hashtag living my best life and hashtag no limits. Eduardo stared at them in the dark. It wasn't jealousy, it was grief. A slow burial of the hope that his son would return. 2 weeks after Thiago left, Lucas discovered something while finalizing the asset transfer. The numbers were correct, but built on a lie. Thiago had accessed confidential company files months earlier. The exclusive crypto fund in Miami wasn't elite, wasn't even real. It was part of a federal-level pyramid scheme already under investigation. Worse, buried inside old email backups, Lucas found Thiago's name listed not as an investor, but as a recruiter, a high-tier one. Earning commissions off every new partner. Thiago hadn't just taken the inheritance, he'd used the family's money to fuel a criminal operation and fled the country the moment the scheme began collapsing. Lucas printed the evidence, his hands shaking with rage. He stared at his father's office door. Eduardo had barely eaten, barely slept, barely spoken, showing him the truth would break him. So Lucas locked the documents away. The truth was a weight too heavy to place on his father's back. For now, he would carry it alone. Thiago wasn't just lost, it was dangerous and out there somewhere. Their last name and a bag full of the family's money. End of part 1. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel and receive more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching until the end. The Parable of the Heir Part 2. The fall Miami was a fever dream, humid, glittering, and full of beautiful lies. For the first few months, Thiago Almeida lived inside that illusion. The inheritance money, once converted to dollars, seemed endless. He rented a luxury apartment in Brickell with floor-to-ceiling ocean views, decorated by an interior designer he met at a rooftop party in Wynwood. Everything was bright, modern, and free of the history he was trying to outrun. Exactly the life he believed he deserved. The exclusive crypto fund was called Aurum Digital Holdings. Their office occupied an entire floor of a glass high-rise overlooking Biscayne Bay. The founder, an American named Richard Van Stellevangelist's smile, spray-tan confidence, and a Patek Philippe that screamed money welcomed Thiago like he was already royalty. "Thiago, my man. The future belongs to the bold," Richard boomed, throwing an arm around him as massive LED screens showed charts skyrocketing toward infinity. "You're not just investing, you're stepping into the new digital elite. Thiago felt like a genius. While his father spent his days covered in dust at construction sites, and his brother buried himself in budgets and blueprints, Thiago stood at the cutting edge, where fortune came from charm, guts, and code. The recruiter commissions were generous, obscenely so. He started with wealthy Brazilians living around Aventura and Sunny Isles, kids with trust funds and parents who didn't ask enough questions. Each new investor fed both his ego and his bank account. The parties were legendary. Champagne towers, weekends on yachts sailing from Key Biscayne, influencers everywhere. His Instagram became a temple of excess. Hashtag King Life, hashtag Blessed, hashtag Future is now. Once a week, he called home. "I'm killing it, Dad." Yeah, I'm being responsible. Love you, Mom." Eduardo listened to his son's upbeat voice with a growing sense of dread. Thiago didn't sound like a young businessman, he sounded like a gambler on a lucky streak. Laura always pressed for details. Thiago dodged with jokes. Lucas stayed silent, swallowing the secret locked inside his desk drawer of the emails. The forged documents, the reports proving Aurum Digital was nothing but a Ponzi scheme dressed in blockchain buzzwords. And Thiago wasn't just a victim, he was one of the recruiters. Lucas lived in quiet torment. Tell his father and he would break him. Keep the secret, and more people, maybe even their own family, could be dragged into Thiago's disaster. So he carried the burden alone. Winter came to Miami, not snow, but a damp chillin brought trouble with it. A major investor Richard often bragged about, a Middle Eastern billionaire, suddenly pulled out. With less new money coming in, the whole scheme began to wobble. Payouts slowed, promises stretched thinner and thinner. Richard called a leadership meeting. Thiago sat at the table, palms sweaty, stomach twisted. "Temporary setback, boys," Richard announced, smile painfully tight. "The market's adjusting. What we need now is hustle. Whoever brings in the most capital this quarter wins a Ferrari." For the first time, Thiago felt genuine fear. Everything his brickle apartment, the parties, the designer lifestyle, depended on the scheme staying alive. He made desperate calls, pushing lies he barely believed anymore, promised impossible returns. He reached out to old contacts from Brazil, from college, from his party circles. But people were cautious now, suspicious. Meanwhile, Thiago's entire personal investment was trapped inside Aurum, accruing returns that didn't really exist. Pressure closed around him like a vice. He drank more not to celebrate, but to sleep. His nights were filled with nightmares of angry investors and plunging charts. His reflection in the mirror grew thinner, more hollow. The wallet he once flaunted now held mostly receipts, not money. On a Monday morning, Thiago arrived at the Aurum office to find the doors locked. A bright orange eviction notice hung on the glass. The furniture, the screens, even the lobby sculpture gone. Richard Vance and his partners had vanished in the night. Accounts offline. Phones dead. The Aurum website erased. Thiago stood frozen in the empty hallway, heart pounding so hard he felt sick. His crypto balances were near zero. The market, spooked by the collapse, had cratered overnight. He was ruined. Not just broke, dangerously broke, because the people he recruited, they wanted answers. Some wanted blood, messages poured in. "Where's my money, Thiago? You and that American are finished. We know where you live." Thiago's fancy brickle apartment was the first casualty. His lease was terminated. He left with 2 suitcases and no plan. He sold designer clothes online for a fraction of their value. He bounced between cheap motels and eventually ended up in a grimy hostel downtown, sharing a room with a man who muttered to himself and a college dropout who stole anything left unattended. His pride evaporated. Died during every $1 burger meal. Died every time an old party friend pretended not to see him. It died in the silence of his phone, which no longer buzzed with invites-only threats. The final breaking point came when he sold the last thing he had. His iPhone 14 Pro Max. A jittery teenager handed him $50 in crumpled bills in an alley. Sitting on the curb, Miami traffic roaring behind him, Thiago stared at his empty hands. Hands that had never built anything. Hands that only knew how to spend. He thought of his father's hands, scarred, calloused, strong. Hands that built a family. Hands that gave him everything. Hands he had repaid with betrayal. The hunger in his stomach couldn't compare to the ache in his soul. A memory surfaced: his mother, reading him the parable of the prodigal son from a kid's illustrated Bible, He always loved the adventure part, never the part where the son lost everything, never the part where he came to his senses. But now he understood. He was living it. Using the last of his money, Thiago paid for 30 minutes at a grimy internet cafe computer, typed slowly, painfully. Dear Mr. Eduardo Almeida, Dad, I messed up. Worse than you can imagine. I lost everything. Not just the money, you mom. Lucas, my dignity. I'm not asking for help. I just want you to know I'm alive. And I'm sorry I don't expect forgiveness. But someday you can send a message back, even a single word. It would mean more than I deserve. Thiago, he didn't dare write your son. He pressed send and walked out with nothing but hope. The email never reached Eduardo. Spam filter set up months earlier by Lucas to block suspicious domains sent it straight to junk. During routine cleanup, Lucas saw the sender, Thiago Almeida _tempat. Subject Dad. His blood froze. He opened it. Regret hit like a punch. Regret. Fear. Rock bottom honesty. For the first time, Thiago wasn't the arrogant, reckless brother. He was a broken man reaching for home. Lucas glanced at the locked drawer holding the evidence of Thiago's crimes. Now the burden was heavier than ever. Tell their father and bring hope, or hide the truth and protect him from heartbreak. Lucas saved the email into a hidden folder. He wasn't ready. Whatever storm Thiago brought back with him, legal, emotional, or both, was still out there, gathering strength. And when he finally returned, he would not be the same man who left. But the family would not be the same either. End of part 2. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel and receive more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Part 3. The embrace that never ended. Time didn't heal anything in the Almeida home. It merely carved absence into different shapes. For Laura, it became a quiet ache that pulsed on special dates: Thiago's birthday, Christmas, or the Sundays when she cooked his favorite meal out of muscle memory. For Lucas, it was a shadow in his office, a slow-burning resentment hardened into resignation. He carried the secret of the email like a stone in his pocket, something he touched in his mind every day, but never dared to reveal. For Eduardo, time was a chisel. Each day cut a deeper line into his face and bent his back a little more. Almeida and Son construction kept running, but the end son had begun to feel like a bruise. Lucas was an exceptional partner, steady and responsible. But Eduardo could see the weight he carried, the burden of the missing son. The joy of building had drained away. Now Eduardo merely endured. Most nights, he sat on the condo balcony overlooking the city lights. He didn't think about budgets. He thought about the cold lasagna night, about the determined glint in Thiago's eyes. Where was he now? Hungry, scared, homeless, or still chasing illusions in Miami? When news reports of collapsing crypto schemes reached him, he felt a chill, then forced it away. My son is smart, he told himself. He wouldn't fall for something like that. But the truth was simpler. He was terrified to know. It happened on an autumn afternoon under a sky ready to unleash one of Rio's sudden violent storms. The front desk intercom buzzed. Mr. Almeida, there's a young man downstairs. Says he's your son, but he looks rough. Should I let him up? Eduardo's blood turned to ice. His hand trembled. What's his name? He says he's Thiago, sir. The world tilted. Laura rushed to his side when she saw his face drain of color. Eduardo? What is it? Thiago, he whispered. Chaos followed. Laura covered her mouth, trembling with a mix of hope and dread. Lucas shot up from his desk. He knew too much: the email, the collapse, the lies. But he never imagined Thiago would show up like this broken. Let him up, Eduardo said, summoning a strength older than disappointment itself. The elevator ride was eternal. Eduardo opened the door before it arrived, standing in the hallway, waiting. When the doors slid open, the creature that stepped out looked nothing like the Thiago they remembered. His clothes hung off his thin frame. His once-styled hair was greasy and unkempt. His beard was patchy. His eyes, once arrogant, were now hollow, bruised, defeated. He carried only a battered backpack. He froze at the sight of his father, bracing for rejection. Eduardo didn't speak. His face flickered with shock, sorrow, and something deeper, love that refused to die. He stepped forward. Thiago's lips trembled. Dad. I'm not here to ask for anything. I just wanted to see if you were okay. I'm so sorry. He didn't finish. Eduardo closed the distance and pulled him into a crushing embrace. Not gentle desperate, a father reclaiming what he thought he had lost forever. Thiago collapsed, sobbing into his shoulder. Months of shame, hunger, fear, and regret poured out in one shattering release. Laura wrapped her arms around both. My son. Lucas stayed back. His anger hardened, but now tangled with pity and something unexpected. Relief. The arrogant prodigal was gone. Eduardo guided Thiago inside like someone carrying fragile glass. That night was not about questions. It was about care-hot food, clean clothes, a warm bath. Laura cried while washing his hair. Eduardo lent him old pajamas. They didn't interrogate him. They simply gave him what he had been starving for. Home. When Thiago lay in his untouched childhood bedroom, he slept 12 hours straight, the sleep of someone rescued from shipwreck. The next morning, Eduardo called him into his office. Thiago sat like a defendant awaiting sentencing, but Eduardo didn't sit behind the desk. He sat beside him. Tell me. And Thiago told everything. The pride, the seduction of easy wealth, the recruiting schemes, the crash, the threats, the hunger. He hid only the danger to his life. When he mentioned the email, Eduardo frowned. I never saw any email. Thiago felt the floor tilt beneath him. His return had not been welcomed. It had been uninvited. Somehow that made the previous night's embrace even more miraculous. Lucas stood in the doorway listening. Then he made his choice. He entered the room, placed a printed copy of the email on the desk, and then slowly laid down a pile of documents, reports, internal leaks, evidence of Thiago's involvement in the fraudulent fund. New Lucas said, I didn't show you because I didn't want to break you. Silence swallowed the room. Thiago stared at the papers, horror filling his face. This was the total inventory of his collapse. Eduardo looked at the documents, then at Lucas, then at Thiago. His eyes held the deep sadness of a truth finally confirmed. Why didn't you show me? Asked Lucas gently. Lucas swallowed. Could seeing you lose him almost destroyed you. And because his gaze finally met Thiago's, because he needed to reach the bottom on his own, to wake up, and he did. Eduardo inhaled slowly, then pushed the pile of papers aside. This, he said, pointing to the documents, is consequences. We will face them. Lawyers, settlements, whatever it takes. We'll spend the rest of your life making amends, Thiago. Thiago nodded, tears streaming. But this, Eduardo said, placing a hand over his chest, is my son, and my son came home. So yesterday's a day of celebration. That evening, Eduardo prepared a small dinner. It was not shallow forgiveness. It was a ritual of re-entry. Lucas remained distant, sitting rigid at the table, the faithful son overshadowed again. Later, Eduardo found him on the balcony. Destroyed you, Lucas said quietly. You welcome him with a feast. Eduardo's voice was steady. I'm not celebrating what he did. I'm celebrating that he stopped, that he survived. The parable isn't about the money. Lucas, it's about the joy of being found, and me. Lucas asked, voice cracking. I never left. I worked. I carried everything. It gets a celebration. Eduardo placed both hands on his shoulders. Lucas, everything I have is yours. You are the rock. If you didn't stay out of duty, you stayed out of love. That is your inheritance. No one can take it from you. Lucas felt those words settle like balm on an old wound. But today, Eduardo continued, we celebrate rescue. Later that night, Lucas watched Thiago sleeping peacefully for the first time in years. The anger didn't vanish, but something larger began forming around its understanding. An anchor does not envy a storm-tossed ship. It's grateful the ship made it back. The next morning, Lucas walked into the kitchen. Thiago was drying dishes beside Laura. There's a place for you on the job site, Lucas said. You start at the bottom, minimum wage. You'll repay everyone you harmed, all of them. Thiago's eyes filled not with shame, but gratitude. It was mercy wrapped in discipline. Thank you, Lucas. Lucas nodded. That was enough. Eduardo watched them, feeling the last knot loosen inside his chest. His older son was understanding. His younger son was rebuilding. The family, cracked, battered, was whole. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating all three men. The steadfast one, the the returned one, and the father who had held the center through every storm. Eduardo Almeida felt a quiet, unshakable joy. He realized he hadn't lost anything. He had rediscovered the value of the son who stayed, through the return of the son who was lost. And from that day forward, their work was built not only with concrete and steel, but with something stronger: truth, grace, and a forgiveness powerful enough to rebuild an entire family. The end. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel and receive more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching until the end.